Long before we had words, before we knew fire, before we understood who we were, a journey began that would change everything. In this series, we follow the first beings who had the courage to explore the world. Step by step, generation by generation, this is the beginning of our story. Thus began a journey that would change everything. Millions of years ago, the world was a green labyrinth, an endless primeval forest, so dense that hardly a ray of sunlight reached the ground. And high above, in the crowns of these ancient trees, lived our earliest ancestors. They were small, strong, cautious, and yet full of curiosity. The trees were their home, their shelter, their whole world. Life was simple up here. They leapt from branch to branch, safely supported by their long arms. They found fruit, leaves, buds, everything they needed. They knew no tools, no language, no future. But they had enough, and as long as the trees were strong, the world was all right. But the world did not remain as it was. It began with a drought. At first, only briefly. Then longer. Then so long that even the oldest trees lost their leaves. The crowns thinned, the branches became brittle, and the spaces between the trees grew wider, too wide to cross. For the first time, they faced a decision that wasn't really a decision. They had to go down, to the ground, to the place they never wanted to be. The ground was an alien world, a world full of sounds they didn't know, full of smells they didn't understand, and full of eyes lurking in the tall grass. When they first touched the ground, it was as if the world held its breath. They moved cautiously, crouching, almost silently. Every step was a risk, every shadow a threat. And then, came the moment they dreaded. A rustling sound, a deep, rumbling growl, a sound that went right through you. A lion, large, strong, silent until the very last moment. The hominids froze, their hearts beat faster, their muscles tensed. They didn't know how to fight. They had no weapons, no claws, no fangs, only fear and instinct.
They stood rooted to the spot, not daring to move. Sheer terror was written in her eyes.
The lion stepped out of the grass, slowly, confidently, as if he knew he was the ruler of this world. The hominids screamed, a wild, roaring, desperate scream. They waved their arms, hurling earth, stones, anything they could find. Not because they were brave, but because they had no other choice. The lion hesitated, just for a moment, but that moment was enough. The group seized the opportunity, running, climbing, leaping back up the nearest tree. Panting, trembling, alive. But they knew they could not return to their old lives. The trees were dying, food was becoming scarce, and the ground was full of dangers. So they had to adapt, again, and again, and again. They moved hunched over, always close to the ground. But this made it nearly impossible to see what lay ahead. The tall grass obscured their view. A predator could be only a few steps away, and they wouldn't notice it. So they straightened up a little further. Just a little, just enough to see over the grass, just enough to spot danger sooner. What began as a small movement became a new way of seeing the world. They stood up more often. They stayed up there longer. They dared to let their gaze wander across the plain. This change wasn't a single moment, not a sudden decision. It was a process that took generations. A quiet, inconspicuous step that changed everything. Because those who are higher up see further, and those who see further survive longer.
Early hominids did not live alone. They moved in small groups, much like today's chimpanzees and bonobos. These groups offered protection, shared knowledge, and the strength of cooperation. Modern research shows that our closest living relatives follow clear social patterns that likely existed in early humans as well. They stayed close together because survival alone was nearly impossible. They warned each other of predators. They searched for food as a group. And they constantly watched one another's body language to avoid conflict. Within the group, roles naturally formed. Some were more alert, some were braver, some were more experienced. The young learned by watching the adults, just as primates do today. When danger approached, the group became quiet. They stood a little taller. They listened, they smelled the wind, and they relied on each other. Modern science also shows that social bonds were essential. Those with strong relationships lived longer. Those who were isolated struggled. Cooperation, warning calls, grooming, shared learning, these behaviors are deeply rooted in our evolutionary past. They shaped who we became.
Dear viewers, thank you for watching until the end. The world was changing, rapidly, relentlessly, inevitably. And this was only the beginning of a journey that would shape our destinies forever. If you want to follow the next stages of this development, then stay with us. Subscribe to the channel, because more episodes are coming. Subscribe with bell icon to activate notifications.